Hi, you're here because you might be curious of what circling is and what we're doing. You may have circled a little, or may have never circled, and I'm going to do my best to explain what it is, but the explanation is not going to really be able to encompass the experience. So I encourage you to come to a circle, whether with me or however you find it. Um, So basically, it's an eye open meditation in relation with others. And in this meditative space, sometimes we simply listen and feel the other and feel ourselves in relation to the other. And sometimes the other is one person or the entire group, depending. Um, in this practice, we are being with each other and being with the things that come up, being with feelings, being with anger, being with fear, shame, joy, anything that comes up, we practice being with it, not trying to change it or fix it, but we want to be with what's authentic in ourselves. This practice is also called authentic relating. And we want to be with the other and not try to fix or change them. But if that's alive in us, this desire to fix or change, we bring it to the circle with, I notice I want to help. I notice I want to change how you feel, see, think, and attempt to not do the attempt to change somebody, but you can bring it because it's real and alive for you. See, there's no part of you that you want to suppress or not bring into a circle. And over time, you'll get better and better at bringing it because you want to, the whole purpose is coming from your heart and love, and to become a more loving, more kind, more open, have better relationships and experiencing life more fully. So the goal is always to come from love. So sometimes when we're in an angry state, it's hard to do that. Or when we're afraid or we're triggered by somebody else, we feel offended, or we feel like somebody's not with us. We opened our heart and they didn't receive it. And that can sometimes hurt. And so when we respond to that, the practice is to come with as best we can from our experience, and to share what happened in us hearing them, as opposed to saying, you did this or you made me feel this. And if it is like, oh, I do feel like they made me feel it, to try with language to say, I notice that I'm blaming you for my experience right now. And maybe have a little bit of wonder in yourself, like maybe we don't know. And trust that they've come from their heart as well, as best we can. Laura, do you have any questions?
Yeah. So it really, well, what I'm understanding is that it's a really inward look at not only yourself and how you're asking questions, but that inward look at that other person.
Like inward, how do you mean?
Um, just like that, really going deeper, like uh, internalizing or trying to internalize or understand how they're feeling. It's hard
Yeah,
to put the question.
understand what's happening with the other person
And feel it.
and feel it, and then bring what's alive for you. And it's a practice. It's not about doing it perfect or doing something right or wrong, although that'll come up and it'll feel like, I don't know how to do this right, and that'll be what's real for you, and what it's like to not know how to do it right, or what it's right, what it feels like to do it wrong. And it just, every circle is totally different than another. And it's really a practice in being with ourselves while being with the other person, and speaking in the present moment. So because it's a practice in presence and a practice in like it's a meditative practice, we tend to avoid story. And that can sound strange to some people, like stories are important. And just because in this practice we avoid stories, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with a story. This it's just not storytelling hour, it's circling hour. And so it's not a super hard rule. It's like if the story is really alive in you, sometimes it comes out and that's okay. But a lot of our stories are stories we've told 1,000 times or we've had in our head over and over again. And that's the thing we don't want to bring, because we want to bring something fresh, and that might change our story. It might change our whole life by like sharing our feeling underneath, this is why I do this, or this is why I think this, or this is what happened that caused me to feel this. And so it's very hard to describe because we're talking about ideas, we're talking about experiences, feelings, sensations. There were 5 basic principles that I was taught at the beginning. And it's like staying at the level of sensation is one. So you want to be in your body, staying committed to connection. So even when somebody is not somebody you like, maybe like committing to staying in connection. The other one is, oh my gosh, I'm going to blank out on them all because I just overthinking it. Owning your experience is a phrase that I think they're not using anymore, but that's one of the principles. And that's experiencing yourself in relation to the others and not believing your blame story. Like that's what I look at it. Like it's my pattern in the past to blame others for my feelings, but to just take a moment and go, well, maybe it's not all their fault, or it's maybe they didn't mean it that way, but it still felt that way in me. So my experience is still real, whether they intended to cause it or not. It's not about that. But you're still connected to this. It's such a strange thing because you're still connected, you're committed to connection, but at the same time, you're owning your own experience. So your experience isn't because of it's the kind of connection that's not codependent. Like a codependent connection is like the two people come together and they make a thing over here, and that thing is doing all the stuff. But this is like, I'm me and you're you, and we just have an interaction that way. And I'm blanking on the other two, but they don't use the principles anymore, so that's okay. Any questions, Laura?
The one question that when you were talking about stories is, so like a backstory is not important because I'm thinking that you need to stay in the now. Like,
right.
So backstory, even though we feel like it might be important to what you're trying to do at circling, it's not
sometimes it might be. So there's not a hard, fast rule. Sometimes voicing that backstory is succinctly and neat and as tidy as we possibly can. Sometimes that's part of it. It can be helpful. So it's like but in the beginning, it's really a great way to practice sharing everything that you experience without the backstory. You'll find like you will just find things in yourself you didn't know were there by just sharing without the backstory. I know for me, like I can give an example of when I came into a circle full of anger once. One time was really big. I came into circles many times with anger, but I came into a circle once with so much anger, and it's something that just happened in my personal life right before I joined the circle, and I went anyway, and I was just so mad. Everybody could see it on my face. And someone asked, well, what happened? And I was like, I don't want to say what happened, because I think that'll change where I am now. Like, I'm just feeling it. I'm feeling this anger. And I'm like, and they're like, well, what's it like? And I'm like, I don't want to tell you what it's like because I don't want to hurt anyone. And they're like, we welcome it. I don't think you can hurt us. And I'm like, oh, you don't know my anger. It's dark and it's mean, you know? And they just kept asking me to explain it. And it's like, I feel hot. I feel rage. I feel like whatever it was in the moment was very real in that moment. It changed my life from that moment on, just meeting anger without the backstory, without giving it the reasons why it was there. It's just being with it. And then realizing when I'm with it, it's not as hurtful to other people as opposed to when I'm justified and this is why, and I'm entitled to it. And then my tone changes and I can be really, Grr. How was that example, Laura?
Good.
Why circle? Why would you want to circle? In the moment of it, it does feel like it does help with feeling like we're not alone. Just in the hour that we circle, it feels really good to have connection. And a lot of times what we'll find out is these feelings of worthlessness or shame or just some of these really shadowy parts of ourselves that we don't look at, that we thought we were alone in, we're not alone. Might really find that. And that's part of the practice in circling. When somebody is in their thing, they might something be happening for somebody, and it might be like, oh, this doesn't relate to me, or this is boring. But it's like the practice is like really allowing yourself to find the parts of you that resonate with that. And sometimes we can't, and that's okay too. And sometimes it's just like, oh, right now I can't find that in me. And sometimes when we share that, it's like that person's like, oh, well, that's because I have a wall up, and that person gets to see their wall that they was invisible. But we don't know. But it's like, oh, a lot of times somebody will be sharing about feeling like they are wrongness. I am wrong. It's a very common theme I've seen. And then new people will be like, me too. And I didn't know, I thought I was the only one carried this. And it's just a really good feeling. So that's one reason to circle. Another reason is to be with triggers, like to learn how to have a trigger in our life and to react to triggers in a different way. It's just, and it's a practice. It's like a yoga practice. It's like a workout for your neurons in your brain. And then there's some things that can happen in a circle that might not feel good, and you might leave a circle not feeling good. So I want to talk about that. Has that ever happened to you, Laura?
No, I've always felt lighter or better. And I've been in some circles where I definitely felt not connected, but it helped to just sit and listen, and then I felt like that connection always happened organically.
I know some people, and me included, have had moments where we've opened ourselves up, and some people might have said something that seemed rude, or like they just moved past us. Like we thought we brought something really vulnerable, and then the group just kind of moved on to someone else and left us in the dust. Um, Sometimes it feels like you've opened your heart and people reject that energy and don't give us that, or sometimes we don't get validate. There's just all these things that at the end of the circle we can feel like, oh, alone or unloved or something. And it's a practice. So like hopefully you have support. You can come to me if it happens after a circle. Like I think it is important for some people to have like a place to come if their feelings are hurt and they don't know how to be with it. But it's a practice. So bring that experience to the next circle and share. I felt awful after I left, and I if it's still alive, like I still feel like I don't know if I can open up now, and I don't know if I can trust this space. And that reminds me of saying this, and maybe I should end this here. Circling is like a safe place to feel unsafe. So it's like, it's not a place that's just safe. It's not a place that's like, we're just going to all be smiling and holding hands and sharing wisdom. No, sometimes it's going to prickle and somebody's going to rub you wrong. They're going to remind you of your dad or your ex-wife and it's great. If it was all smiles and giggles, then it wouldn't be as powerful. So there's the time that you might feel unsafe. You might have gone into your shadow, into your shame and pain, and the circle ended before you had a big insight or a big, like, I got this. Or you might leave. I left a couple circles feeling like, and this is, mind you, I've done at least 500 or 1,000 circles. I don't know. So sometimes I want to peel my skin off, like, oh, I don't want to be me. Oh, I showed up in anger, or I admitted I was judging everybody, or like I was trying things as a practice. I was trying to bring the truth, like, oh, I feel bored. And then like how I felt in the connection, bringing that was like, oh, they went away. And like, it almost can feel like abandonment and all these things also can be triggered. And then the circle ends like, oh, what did I do? I wish I didn't do that. I wish I didn't talk. And that's like just part of it. And so it's a safe place to feel unsafe. And it's a safe place to bring that feeling of unsafety. And it's for us, like really amazing people who are up for the challenge. It's not for everybody. How's that sound, Laura?
Great. Yeah.
It's not for everybody.
You answered a lot of questions.
Mm.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is a long enough intro, and things keep changing over time, and how I see it and what the experience is. And thank you for joining, and hopefully I'll see you in a circle super soon.
Thank you for having me.
Bye. Thank you, Laura.